Hey everyone, Chris here with another video tutorial on how to build an RBA. For anyone that watched my last video, I apologize that half of the video was off of the camera. I'm using a regular digital camera on a tripod as the webcam on my computer sucks. So until I get a better webcam, this is how I'll be doing it, and that is why I was not able to see it. So just like last night, I will be using the SmokeTech RSST rebuildable atomizer. It's, like I said, it's my favorite for teaching people on because it's two posts, a fill hole, and a hole for the wick. It's got a lot of space in it, and it's just a single coil, so it's very simple to build. I am using 400 stainless steel mesh. I oxidize mine, well, not really oxidize, I take it to a torch so that I can burn off any of the chemicals and the oils from manufacturing. And I'm using 32 gauge Kanthal, which at the end should give me about a 2 ohm resistor. So, first point I'm going to make, a lot of people don't know this, so I'm going to throw it out there in case you don't. When you are starting with this, a lot of people have issues knowing whether or not they've got a good build or not. If you take your wire, put it under your negative post, tighten it down, like so, and then you just put the other end under the positive post about where you're going to end. You can then take your unit that reads ohms and test it, and that says 3. We don't want that much, so we're going to take it in a little bit more. Put it under there. Retest. 2.9. Now this, you really only ever need to do this the first time you're using a certain gauge of Kanthal, because once you know how much to use, you're basically going to get the same thing every time. So 2.5, that'll be good for what we're doing. Let it cool down a bit. It's going to be hot. So put a little bend where it's going to end. That way I know about how much I'm going to be using. So put that away for now. So what you're going to do is take your 2x4 piece of stainless steel mesh and, like I said, I oxidize it. You don't have to do this. It's just my personal preference. 2-inch, 4-inch. The 2-inch side you are going to take and you're going to fold back about 1/4 of an inch of it, like so. So you have a little flat flap. And that is going to be the last bit rolled into your wick. And you're going to start at the other end, and you are going to start rolling the wick up like a tube. Now you don't have to use this much. I like to use it because it gives a nice solid wick for wrapping the coil around. I find if I use, say, a 2.2 inch piece like a lot of people tend to do, it's a little floppy and it makes it a little bit hard to work with while you're trying to wrap the coil around it. I know a lot of people like to wrap their coil around a drill bit or a screwdriver and then pull that out and feed it through the wick, or feed the wick through it. I don't like to do this because the whole point of this is that the coil is supposed to be touching the wick in all places. If you stick something else in there, if you have enough room to work that drill bit, screwdriver, whatever out, and then work the wick into it, it's not tight enough. So I roll my wick up. So I start in the middle, roll outward. This actually might have been a little bit too long. quick roll to get it a little smaller. Okay, so this piece actually ended up being a little bit too long. So I'm going to unroll it a little bit. Snip a little bit off. And you're still going to want to unroll it a little bit more, and you're still going to put that 1/4 inch flap in like we did at the beginning. And what that's going to do is help with the hot spots. It's going to minimize them. It's going to give you a little bit less, in my opinion. Nothing's actually proven on that, but it's the way I do it. It's the way I've always done it, so it's the way I'm going to teach you. So now we should fit it right in that hole. There you go. So it fits in there, so that should be fairly tight. Now, once it fits in there, trim a little bit more off, still a little bit too tight. This isn't exact science. I get pieces that are supposedly 4x4, so I cut them in half. Sometimes they're not exactly 4x4, so exactly in half doesn't necessarily always work. Now it goes in there, so you don't want it to be too tight. You want it to slide in and out. Once you do that, nip the ends off. You want it to be nice and flat on that end. Another thing that I do that's not absolutely necessary is I put a slit in the end, and it lets it fan out a little bit in the oil, give a little bit more surface space for wicking. Again, nothing's actually proven that it helps, but it's something that I've always done, so again, what I'm going to teach you. Let's see here. So, we'll make this a little bit easier on us. I'm going to take this back out. I'm going to feed the wick in from the bottom side to make it a little easier on us. There we go. Put it back in the tank. Now once you have that in there, sitting on the bottom, you want this to be about the same height as the screw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these nips, cut that off, pick that up. Pick it up later. And then I'm going to take this coil, Kanthal, and I'm going to wrap it around this wick. Now again, I wrap it directly around the wick because it lets you get good connection the whole way up. Now, with 32 gauge Kanthal, it's actually 4 wraps is where you're going to want it to be. So if you're looking at it from this side where the wick goes in, you're going to see 4, and that's going to include the one that comes off the negative post and the one that goes under the positive post. So in case you can't see, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how you want it. So I got a little bit extra wire here, that's okay. Let's throw it on this guy and check the resistance before I cut the excess off. So 1.8. Still jumping around a bit, which means that it is not in a good spot yet. But we will be troubleshooting the coil in a minute. I don't want to do that quite yet. 2.3, perfect. Right where I want it. So, at this point, make sure you're good under that positive. Snip off your excess wire there. And if you have a mechanical mod, I suggest using it for this part. You can do it with a regular mod, you can do it with anything. If you have a regulated mod, if you get a hot spot and it shorts out, it's not going to fire. So that's why mechanical mods are best. They will run on anything. And you're not going to, it's no danger, you're not going to blow up a battery like some people think in the 2 seconds that you're pulsing. Battery's not going to blow up unless you are drawing maximum amount of amps for like an hour. So you'll be fine. It won't burn. It won't blow up. So you pulse it. And it's smoking. So it starts to turn red. And what you don't want is for that red to suddenly stop. You want it to get through the whole coil. And in the end, you basically want the whole coil to turn red almost at the exact same time. So you just got to play with it a little bit. When you get hot spots, you'll know when you have a hot spot because it will turn bright white. Now, when you're running this high of a resistance on a mechanical mod, the whole coil is not going to turn red. What you're basically doing is getting rid of your hot spots. Once all the hot spots are gone and it's putting out heat, but it's not actually turning red anymore, that's when it's time to switch back to a regulated unit. So what you want to do is take whatever unit you're using, whether it be Provari, an Ego battery, anything, it doesn't matter. And you're going to turn the voltage up to a good, 4.6, 4.7. You want it to be high when you do this. Reset, and then you want to fire it. And see how it turns red and it stops right there? You got a hot leg right there. You do not want that. So you tweak the wire a little bit. Until you get it where the coil is actually turning red. Be careful, that coil, this wick's going to get really hot because obviously it's metal. And you're heating it up. But Just keep tweaking that wire little bits by little bits until the whole thing turns an even reddish orange color. And that's what you want. Once you get rid of the majority of the hot spots, you can tweak it while you're firing. When you have a hot spot, you do not want to just hold the button down because it will break the wire and then you'll have to start all over. But at this point, whole thing's turning red. That's what we want right there. Now if we check the resistance again, it will change while you're tweaking it because when you have those hot spots, it's shorting out a bit and it adjusts the voltage. But 2.4. So got a good resistance. So at this point, I'm going to go get some juice. So I'll be right back. Alright, so we got our juice. What I'm going to do is take a syringe, get a little bottle of juice here, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the coil first. I don't like to fill the tank until I give the coil a little test because the tank's full, you got to re-clean it if it's not right, and it's a disaster. So this is what you do not want to have to do. The whole point of this is to avoid having to start over again. So, put that on there, and I'm going to take my lid. Tastes good. So if it tastes good, good to go. If it still tastes kind of burnt, you could still have a hot spot that hasn't completely gotten cleared. As long as your whole coil turned bright red at the same time, you should not have any more hot spots. But not necessarily true all the time. So you still have a hot spot, you can tweak it a little bit more while it's firing. If you get any of the little pops and bubbles where the oil sprays all over you, there's probably a hot spot there. Take the same thing, a pick, a little screwdriver, pair of tweezers, anything you have, and tweak the coil a little bit right there and try and get rid of that. So, one there. You fill up your tank. I'm actually not going to fill the tank right now because I'm going to be rebuilding this again with cable for my wife. I did this just because she needed a new coil built and I needed to redo my video. So, but let's do it one more time. Delicious, a lot of smoke output, it's fantastic. Alright, well, thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye.